Hey everybody, welcome to the Blue Collar Wealth Club podcast. I am one of your hosts, Jerry Garcia. I'm going to be speaking a lot on this podcast about wealth building, creation, passive income, all that good stuff to take you from the level of just having a really successful business to taking that business success and actually translating it into something that you can leave behind for the next generation or for whomever you're trying to leave it. I wanted to talk about my background and kind of what got me here to where I am today and why I'm so passionate about this, why I think it's important for everyone to know this, and why specifically I like to focus on blue-collar people. Growing up, I grew up in a blue-collar family. My dad was a mailman. My mom was a custodian for the schools, and just kind of like everybody else, or at least the majority of this country, really hardworking people who did enough to get by. But, we certainly weren't like swimming in money. We had enough to do anything that we needed. We didn't struggle for anything, so we were definitely doing all right. But there came a point in time as I got older when I realized that there were others kind of created wealth for themselves in a way that they didn't ever have to worry not only about the small things, but about the large things. Talking things like putting their kids through college, having properties that created cash flow for them every month. As I started to learn more and more about this stuff, I really thought it was important to teach the people in my family and the people around me who kind of grew up in these blue-collar families to really dive into this and learn the secrets that some of the wealthy people know that keep their wealth growing, rather than doing enough to get by, maybe putting money away for retirement, but not really ever getting past that. That's kind of why I'm so passionate about what I do. I've spoken on this topic before. I got invited to a high school once to speak on any topic that I wanted. They wanted minorities to come in and speak to their primarily minority schools, so they wanted minority leaders in the community, especially young professionals, to come in and speak. So that's the topic I chose to speak on. It was not that much after I had read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I was asked to do the speaking engagement, and so I was deep into it. The cash flow quadrant, which is something you'll hear us talk about a lot on this podcast, that concept really kind of changed my life. From thinking of, like most of us do, get a job, put money away in a 401k or an IRA, save for retirement. You get there, and especially the older generation, my dad, my mom, both had pensions, working blue-collar jobs. They had that income to fall back on, not to mention Social Security and whatever they were putting away in a 401k. Fast forward to now, newer generations don't have the ability in most cases to get a pension unless you're working for the government, some type of job that provides it. The majority of employers don't provide pensions anymore. Saving for retirement and actually getting to retire in a way that's enjoyable is a much harder feat these days. Not to mention with inflation and everything, the dollar amount that you're chasing seems to go up year after year. It's very important to learn some of these tricks where you're not just saving for a dollar amount, but the number that I like to speak of, earning that retirement, which is more what I like to call financial freedom. That number is based on how much do you need every month coming in the door without you lifting a finger in order to have all of your bills paid, have money put away for emergencies, and in order to live the lifestyle you want to live in retirement. That's a lot of what you'll hear me talking about on this podcast, something I'm very passionate about. My parents were divorcing. My mom became a lunch lady part-time, became a custodian full-time. My dad kept being a mailman, and so watching them struggle each to raise 3 boys on one income was a challenge. And not to mention, my dad always had this goal. He said, hey, when I hit retirement, the pace that I'm on, he'd been saving, he was in his early 20s, that's when he started the Postal Service, had been putting money away every single month, was super excited that, hey, when I retire, I'm going to have $1 million in the bank. He was so dead set on that goal, and the crash of 2008 came. It wiped out at least half of his retirement. Was years 2008, I think he would have been 45 at that point. There's really no starting back from square one and thinking that you'll get to that same amount when you retire. He was able to make it work, thankfully, because he does have that pension and because he still has the ability to collect Social Security whenever he wants to. He's delaying that as much as possible so that number goes up. But think about somebody who's in the situation that most of us are in this generation, talking about having to start over. That's kind of where I found myself. After working as a mortgage loan officer for several years, running this high volume team, you're a preferred lender for a builder, really just crushing it, bringing in lots of money. That account went away, had to start over from scratch, and really had to try and find business on my own. And what happened then is I realized that my experience wasn't enough to bring me business. I spent the next several years really trying to find business, digging into that savings and over time wiping out that saving, getting into credit card debt to try and, but at that point I did have debt and I had wiped out my 401k at my age, trying to start over in my 30s from zero and realizing that there is no getting back what I had already had in there. You lose out on all the interest you would have gained over the years. That's a really tough place to be and a really tough thing to try and figure out. Have a daughter and trying to think of how am I going to put her through college. I mean, my daughter turns 13 in a couple weeks. We're talking 5 years from now. How do I get all that back in time to be able to send her to college and not have to have her strap herself into student loan debt? I want to talk to a lot of you about that. It's something that I think is important. I think blue collar workers are the kind of backbone of this country. They do all the hard work. They do all the grunt work that keeps this country moving. If we can strengthen that middle class, it really will make a difference in the economics of this country. I think it's important to learn these tools because this is not stuff they teach in school. This is the stuff people who grew up with money understand, that those of us who didn't get left behind, and why that wealth gap keeps getting larger and larger. I'm excited to be able to start this podcast and really dig in, teach you hopefully a lot of things that change the trajectory of your life, really get you thinking in a different way about not only your own income, but your wealth and how you grow it and how you pass that along to the next generation and really build a life for yourself that you may not have thought was even possible. Appreciate you listening, tuning in. Have a lot more to teach you guys from here on out. Welcome to the Blue Collar Wealth Club podcast.